Hey guys, Troy Francis here with another episode of the Gentlemanly Podcast, which is brought to you by myself, Troy Francis, dating coach, author, and content creator. Helped hundreds of guys, if not thousands, when we include online clients as well, all over the planet for the past decade. And I have a lot of knowledge to impart when it comes to the wonderful field of the modern dating scene. Okay, so time, cash rich, time poor. Let's get that right. Cash rich, time poor. This is something that we find afflicts quite a number of our clients, partly because we're not cheap, because we offer a very good service and we do charge premium rates for that service, not unreasonable rates, but we certainly are not inexpensive. And so we attract, and I say we, I'm talking about myself and then people that I work with like James, Tusk and Les Thomas. We tend to attract pretty affluent guys who have been successful in their chosen fields, whether that's a career in business or whether that is a business or that they've started themselves or some other kind of enterprise, or maybe through crypto or whatever it is. And one of the problems that a lot of these guys have is, well, and it fuels the other problem, which is the problem with the ladies, is that they are working so hard on whatever it is that they're doing for a living that they don't have the time, or they claim they don't have the time to really practice their social skills, okay? And if you're watching this and it resonates with you, then perhaps this is a problem that you have as well. And I get it, because a while ago, some time ago now, actually, so in fact, actually a decade ago, I used to work in corporate. I had a corporate job, okay? And I had a number of corporate jobs for different organizations, and as you probably know, I mean, from time to time, those would get, depending on what was happening in the company, what was happening in the market, those could become incredibly stressful and incredibly time-consuming. When I started out, I guess I was kind of on easy street. Things weren't too bad. The market that I was in was very good, and I was able to, do sort of 9 to 5-ish, 9 to 6, and it was fine, and it wasn't too stressful. Then things became very tight and squeezed in the industry that I was working in, and suddenly my hours increased, and the stress increased, and the scrutiny increased, and all the rest of it, And I completely get how that affects the time that you've got for socializing and for practicing social skills, and B, the desire to do it. And for me, in many ways, one of the bigger problems it wasn't even the time so much. I mean, the time was a problem, because obviously if you're working longer hours, then time is going to be a problem. But it was also how I felt, and it was how I felt during my off hours. And when you've had an incredibly stressful day, an incredibly stressful week, and there's a lot of pressure on you, and there's another stressful week coming up after the weekend, or the next day, or whenever it is, then you are probably not going to feel in the mindset of being the life and soul of the party. And that's just a natural thing. I don't blame anybody for that. I experienced it. I'm sure you have too. A couple of things to say, however. If you want to get good at this social skills thing, if you want to get good at sub-communicating intent in your dealings with the opposite sex, if you want to get good at flirting, if you want to get good at having conversations that actually lead somewhere, getting contact details, getting dates, and so on and so forth, and you're not very experienced in this, or it hasn't been working for you very well for whatever reason, then you are going to have to practice a bit, okay? And this is one of these things where it's a skill set that you can't just learn by watching videos, as much as people try. And as much as we all wish that you could, it just doesn't work like that. You can't just sit around and watch videos on the internet. You can't just sit around and read blogs or Substacks or whatever about the noble art of dating. It's a game that is played out on the field, and if you're not out on the field, you're not playing the game, you're not getting the practice, then you're not going to get any better, and it's as simple as that. However, and this is the main point that I want to come to, people overestimate how much time they actually need to A, have practice this stuff on a daily basis, and B, have a meaningful interaction that leads somewhere. People, and I fall into this trap as well, and I think it's actually a fear mechanism. I think it's actually underlying it. There's a sense of, oh damn, I've got to do this really difficult thing, and your brain will try to come up with all different kinds of excuses as to why you shouldn't do it, or why you don't have to do it, or why you might let yourself off the hook. And I think one of them is, oh, this is going to take me ages, it's going to take loads and loads of time, it's going to be, it's just not going to be possible, so therefore I won't do it. The reality is, I just took a break from filming, so I'm in here, I've been doing some video filming today, and I just took a break, and I walked out down the street to go and buy a sandwich and to have a quick soft drink before coming back and continuing. Now, I left this building for probably 25 minutes or something like that. Now, I didn't speak to anybody because I have a girlfriend and that's not on the agenda. But, if I'd wanted to, I could definitely have had the time to have had a quick, 2 or 3 minute conversation with somebody. Hey, listen, just saw you. Never normally do this, but you look very nice. I wanted to come and say hello. I really like your style. I am Troy. You are Maria. Very nice to meet you, Maria. And what are you out doing today, this beautiful day? Maybe you're out shopping, or, oh, I see you're a tourist. You've come to London for a few days. That's interesting. Where are you from? Paris. Oh, wow, that's really cool. I was in Paris before Christmas. We had such a wonderful time. We went to X, Y, and Z, etc., etc. Have that conversation. Very, very, it doesn't need to be anything in depth. It doesn't need to be very quick. And also what you're doing as well, remember, is testing for interest. So if that particular woman was amenable, to the approach, amenable, she looked happy, she looked pleased, she said, oh, it's so nice of you to come and say that, or she smiled and she was flicking her hair and, that kind of thing, then obviously you would continue with that conversation. If she didn't, if she said, oh, thanks very much, and then she just, sort of got her phone out and started talking to somebody and said, oh, I've got a partner, and walked off, then okay, fine. So hardly any time has been wasted at all. If she does engage, then you can continue with the conversation, but the conversation doesn't have to go on for very long. The conversation can go on for a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, and really you want to be leaving on a high point anyway, okay? You don't want to let the conversation drag and it goes on for 10, 15 minutes and then it's like, oh yeah, so what else do you do apart from water polo? What else do you like? And she's like, oh God, here's another. How long is this going to go on for? Ideally, you want to keep it short and sweet, and I'll explain why in a second. But then all you have to do is say, look, the reality is I've just popped out from the office. I was just doing some work. I'm going to need to get back, but you seem really cool. I've really enjoyed this vibe. Let's exchange details and I'll drop you a message in the week, okay? And that's it. Very, very simple. That can be accomplished with between 2 to 3 minutes. You could go for a bit longer if you want, but really, it's a very, very short amount of time, okay? Then you've got a telephone number, you've got a WhatsApp or whatever, maybe you've got an Instagram or something. You can send a message later, and then you can go back and forth on the Instagram, on the messaging platform a little bit more, and then you can propose a date. And the whole thing can happen very, very quickly. It doesn't need to be this long, drawn-out thing. Because one of two things, just to reiterate, is going to happen. Either you're going to make the approach and she's going to make it clear pretty instantaneously that, okay, thanks, but you're not for me. In which case, fine, you just say, have a great day, and you walk off and you carry on with your business anyway. Or there is some reciprocal interest, and in that instance, you continue the conversation, but you don't have to have, the conversation doesn't have to go on for ages, and you get to control when it ends. And in fact, you should control when it ends, because you should be the one to end the conversation, and you should end the conversation on a high point. So it's sort of like you guys are really vibing. Say you were talking about Paris. You're like, oh, I love this particular district. I love this area around. Where is it? I forget now. But I love this. I love this particular area. It's so cool. Anyway, listen, it's been great talking to you. I do have to run now, but let's exchange details and we can pick this up another time. I'll drop you a message in the week. Hand the phone over. Get her to put in the WhatsApp details, and then go from there. It's taken you a few minutes. All right. Now, I think, in all honesty, and I've worked with some very high net worth clients who make a lot of money and are worth a lot of money and are very, very, very busy. And I think if we're all honest, we can probably do that once or twice a day or 3 times a day, which is what we recommend. I think if we're honest, we can. It's just we choose not to, because mentally we think, oh, I'm going to get this conversation and it's going to go on for hours and, oh, what do I say, and blah, blah, blah. And all you have to do is remind yourself, well, no, it doesn't have to go on for hours. It could go on for a couple of minutes. She knows what's up because, the eye contact is there, the proximity is there. She gets, the underlying vibe that, yes, I find her attractive. Obviously, there's a romantic subtext to this, but we're having a nice conversation. The vibe is good. Get the contact details, go from there, no problem. Okay? That can be accomplished very quickly. And in fact, it can actually be better to keep the interaction short, all right? Because you retain a sense of mystery about you by not banging on for too long. The longer the initial interaction goes on for, the more chance you have of screwing it up in some way, in some shape or form, by saying the wrong thing, by saying something that annoys her, by saying something that gives her the ick, by friend zoning yourself effectively, or or just boring her, right? It's almost better, and this is something that Paul Jenkee used to talk about back when he was roaming the streets of NYC, that he would keep his interactions deliberately very, very brief, and get a telephone number, because then she knows enough about you and you know enough about her for there to be a nascent connection there, but you haven't overburdened her with stuff where it's a bit like, I'm over this guy. You're allowing her imagination to do the work, which is really the most powerful tool at your disposal. Her imagination is the most powerful tool that you have at your disposal. So think about it like that. And also just recall that you don't have to spend hours and hours doing this. The reason it feels like it's such a big endeavor is because the adrenaline, the sort of build up to it, the making ourselves do this thing that we find a bit scary and we don't really want to do, is powerful, and that saps our energy, and that makes it seem like it's this really long, arduous process. But actually, the process itself can be relatively short. So the argument that I'm making is that however busy you are, you probably get to go for the odd coffee break here and there. You probably leave the office from time to time, okay? Or you probably could. And you probably could have a conversation with somebody for 2 or 3 minutes that leads to a phone number. The reasons that you're not doing that, or you're saying you can't do that, are mainly mental. And it's, as I say, partly because of fear, because you know that it's going to be this massive adrenaline spike, and that makes it seem like it's a longer process than it is. And also because you just don't want to, you want to find reasons to avoid doing it, You want to find reasons to avoid doing it. And so this is a very convenient reason. But actually, if you're efficient with your time, and the other thing, sorry, it's because your emotions are clouding the situation. So you're having a stressful time at work, that's having an emotional effect on you, which means that you don't feel like taking the action, which is completely understandable, and I know because I've been there. But really, if you could separate away that emotion and just say, I'm going to do this thing anyway because I've committed to myself that I'm going to become more social, I'm going to learn this stuff, I'm going to master this stuff, then time isn't really the issue. It's actually emotion. It's that negative emotion, because you're like, I've had it almost where you're so worried about the work aspects of things that you think, I should be worrying about the work aspects of things. And if I drop that for a minute and go into a more light version of my persona, I'm somehow letting the side down as far as the work's concerned. But worrying about a thing never helps you to improve that area of your life. So worrying about the work situation, it isn't going to help, you know? You could completely switch off from the work situation. The work situation is as the work situation is, right? You worrying about it isn't going to make it better or worse. Actually, it's probably going to make it worse. So switching off for a few minutes, having a conversation that can be very brief, getting some contact details, and then going back. And then you can worry about work all you like. You know, you've accomplished the thing you wanted to accomplish. It is possible. It's fear and it's emotion that are making it seem like it's difficult, plus the idea that this is something that needs to take up a huge amount of time when really it isn't, okay? And if you just do that 2 or 3 times a day, or even, you know, load it to the weekend if you want, so you can do a few during the week and then do more at the weekend if that's better for you. But even during the working week, I believe that all of us, no matter how crazy our jobs are, have a couple of minutes. You know, people go out for a cigarette break, they go out to buy a coffee, they go out to buy lunch. I mean, come on. Or the commute home, or the commute into the office in the morning. There's always a little bit of time, okay, for a short interaction with another human being. All right? So a lot of this is excuse making. I do get it. I get it because I've been there. I completely understand. But I think a lot of this is mental, and I think you can break through it if you understand, firstly, the reasons why you're feeling this way, and if you choose logically rather than going with your feelings to go against that and just do what you know you need to do, then you can combat this and you can get through it. Anyway, with all of that being said, enough of that for today. Hope you enjoyed this, hope you resonated, got something from this. If you did and you want to talk about coaching and mentoring, you can email me, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, or you can hit me up on X or on Instagram by DM. The handles for those are @realtroyfrancis, and I will see you guys again in the next episode. And do subscribe to this, by the way, whatever platform you're on, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, make sure you subscribe. See you again very soon. Bye-bye.